Money should be something that is hard to get. So at one point, seashells were actually considered money. True story. We used to barter in seashells, and we used it for barter, and we'd use it for goods. We even used things like salt, cattle, all kinds of things to barter with as money because it was hard to get. I have something that's hard to get. You have something that's hard to get. Then we figured out that gold was a noble metal. And what a noble metal basically means is if you take this 10-ounce gold bar here and you put it in a pyramid, let's say, and it sat there for 1,000 years, it would still be a 10-ounce gold bar when you found it. It wouldn't be rusted. It wouldn't be oxidized. You would still have the same weight there. It wouldn't corrode over time. That's what a noble metal is. That's why silver is a noble metal and gold is a noble metal, and that's why we consider them money, because they are a noble metal. It also has intrinsic value to it. Now, what is intrinsic value? Intrinsic value means miners went out there and worked really hard to get these gold nuggets here. They mined these gold nuggets out of the mining shafts and went into the hillsides and did whatever they could to pan and find these gold nuggets here. After that labor of finding those gold nuggets, they then refined it into a bar like this that is pure gold with no other impurities. Pure 999 gold. That means that this bar here has a lot of stored labor. You can understand when you hold this bar that miners worked very hard to get all the gold out of the ground, refine it, and then have this gold bar here. And now we have that stored value that is money worldwide. Then, in 1971, Richard Nixon was faced with a dilemma where a lot of other countries were asking for gold because our dollars were back to gold. So the reason they came out with paper currency in general was because we couldn't go around and barter in gold anymore. When we wanted our simple goods, we needed some way to pay for things in a fractional way. That's why they came out with paper currency, and we were told from our government, hey, we'll hold the gold and silver, we'll give you gold and silver certificates, and you basically take these pieces of paper. If you ever want your gold and silver, you just bring it to us at an assay office. You actually had to give them silver certificates, quite a few of them at the time, to get this 1,061 troy ounce bar in silver. Because the dollar was back to gold, it was considered the gold standard by all currencies worldwide. So everybody started adopting the dollar, and other countries decided to go, hey, we don't know if you actually got the gold, so we want the gold instead of the dollars now. Can you provide us the gold? And Nixon was faced with a dilemma there in 1971. He ended up choosing to basically say, no, we're going to keep the gold, and the dollar is no longer redeemable to gold. So basically, having IOU notes and then saying we don't owe you anymore and we're keeping the gold sort of thing. The dollar has been so diluted that nobody can really tell you how many dollars are even in existence anymore. You know, when you had gold, you at least knew there was a finite amount of it, or a somewhat finite amount of it. It was hard to get, and you could store that value and trust that you had an ounce of gold there. Now, we have to trust that these IOU notes that are back to nothing but debt are considered money, that this is money here. In 2020, they have roughly printed gold's entire market cap in 1 year. So gold's market cap is somewhere between 8 and 10 trillion. They have printed that roughly in 1 year in 2020, so the dollar has become dramatically diluted. When we say printing cash, when we say, poof pow over the Fed is making more cash, they are not technically printing this cash on these pieces of paper that we call $100 bills like this. They are actually digitally injecting it into the economy, for the most part. Actually, more than 90% of money is already digital. So when you go to your bank and you go to, let's say, one of your commercial banks, and you see, or you even just look on your app on your phone and you pull up on your phone how much money is in your bank account. You see a digital number there, but is that money there? It's not backed to any blockchain. It's just a digital number on a screen. What's interesting enough is those banks can take your money because it isn't a reserve bank. A reserve bank is something where you give them 100,000, they have to hold 100,000 in the vault, and you actually end up having to pay them because they're storing your money and doing nothing with it. With commercial banks, they take your money in, They can give out loans at will because the interest rates are at 0% right now. So they can multiply your money. If you give them 1,000, they could turn it into 10,000 in loans if they want to. They can invest your money at will, and they pay you a fraction of a percentage in interest, which is pretty much next to nothing on the interest. They used to have to keep 10% in the vault. Now they can give out loans at will. As we've become digitalized, we really have very little checks and balances. There is no open ledger of all the dollars moving around. They don't have exact figures of dollars that are being moved to the penny. We only have rough figures. We need a decentralized money. If we had a T-chart on what the future of money should be, it should be decentralized, where it means I can send you money without any intermediary. There's no need for an intermediary like a commercial bank for me to send you money. That is a decentralized money. So check one for Bitcoin. The next thing you want is it for that money to be finite. Bitcoin ends at 21 million. We are approaching 19 million mined, so there's not that many left to actually mine, and that is another check. You also want a network to be able to process these transactions. That's another check for Bitcoin. So all of those things really are what you want for a future money. Decentralized, digital, and you want a network that can support that and people that are already adopting this new currency. What you don't want the future of money to be is something that can be diluted, printed at will, and basically continuously put secondaries into the market. So these central banks are making money when you do a wire transfer, and they are making you hold your money with them. You don't have control of the bank. They have control of your money, and they are investing that money at their own discretion. So you are trusting them to hold that money, and you have them wiring the money to whoever needs to accept that money, and then they are having their money held within that bank, and that bank is investing that money and giving loans against that money. They have control of that money, and they are actually printing more money than the Fed even prints because they give out loans at will, and that's how money really becomes printed through fractional reserve banking. But what is the intrinsic value to Bitcoin? You have a network, so you have a certain amount. You have 21 million of these Bitcoins, and it takes a lot of computing power and a lot of electrical power to make one of these Bitcoins. So those are the costs to make a Bitcoin, where a Bitcoin costs thousands and thousands of dollars just to make one. So there is an intrinsic value just in the computational cost and the electrical cost to make a Bitcoin. But still, you ask yourself and you go, well, yeah, I get it, but it's still just a digital algorithm. Why do I consider this to be money? It ends at 21 million. There won't be any more after 21 million, period. It can divide, but 21 million is the finite end number for Bitcoin. So if I ask you right now, go get me a Bitcoin. Go ahead, go get me a Bitcoin. It's easy, right? Just go get it like it's a gallon of milk at the grocery store. Just go get me a Bitcoin. It wouldn't be that easy because it's not that accessible like that. You got to pay a lot of money to have a Bitcoin. To have a decentralized network that can process these transactions is extremely unique to me, and this is my number one point with Bitcoin. We know we're going digital. Now, the choice is really CBDCs, central bank digital currency, that they can basically announce as much secondaries as they want. They can dilute it as much as they want. They can set whatever price they want. That is what a CBDC is. Or you have something that is completely outside of any central party's control and completely decentralized and peer-to-peer like Bitcoin, where you essentially, if you own your Bitcoin, if you have your keys, you have full control of your money. You are essentially the bank by owning Bitcoin. When you give your money to a commercial bank, that money isn't really there. A transaction in Bitcoin is an open ledger where people can see the ledgers, but they don't know who is who. It just is numbers. But you can see how many Bitcoin are in each wallet and how much has been moved each day. When I have my Bitcoin, I actually control my Bitcoin. When I see my ledger, when I see how much I have in my Bitcoin balance, I actually have control of that money. I am the bank.